Today, we're going to find out if we ruined our 4-liter donor engine by letting it sit outside for years. When we pulled it out of the Grand Cherokee, it was running and driving, but we never finished hooking it up in the CJ. Now, after 4 years of sitting out in the elements, it's time to finally get the wiring and a fuel system hooked up and see if we can get this thing running. It's time for phase 2 of our CJ7 build. Now that we got the front end fitting-ish, it's time to start working on getting this old 4-liter running. And this ran when I put it in here. Well, actually, I don't know if it ran when I put it in here. It ran when I took it out of the Jeep 2 days before I put it in here. But as you can see, nothing is hooked up to it. It's just sitting in there. This YJ frame, fortunately, came with mounts for a 4-liter. So it bolted right in, it fits properly, it looks like everything's where it's supposed to be. But the first thing we're gonna have to do is figure out the wiring harness, because this is fuel injected, it's gonna stay fuel injected. I have the entire wiring harness out of the Cherokee that this came out of. I just need to get it out, get the computer, figure out what I need in order to make this thing run. For the second time during this build, as I'm going through boxes of parts, I found a brand new part that I ordered and an old part that I had. This is why you don't spread builds out over multiple years. I don't remember there being that much wiring on the Cherokee. This is a shifter cable. So what I'm gonna do is this is the distribution center for power off of the Cherokee. And I believe, based on the looks of that, and the looks of this piece that came off of our YJ tub, I'm gonna be able to integrate that power distribution system into our CJ and kind of upgrade the electronics a little bit. So that's my plan. I'm gonna finish digging the wiring harness out, and we'll start getting this together. I'm gonna have to find some wiring diagrams so I know what needs to go where. It's a disaster. So let's do a little walk around. So what we have right now is this is the original CJ7 harness. This actually, I know where everything goes. This goes out to the headlights. I don't know where that wire goes, but we'll figure, that one's not that bad. But these all go to the headlights. And the horn, I think, body ground, side marker light. This goes to the other side, does all the same stuff over there. This is for the washer pump. All these wires went to the CJ7 engine, which this, for some reason, the bolts are either different on a YJ tub or they're rusted out. I'm not sure, but we're gonna figure that out in a minute. This is the engine harness, and here's what was still attached to it. I'm not sure why some of that got cut off, but I just finished cutting it off so it's out of my way. I don't know what we need from that harness, but I know we don't need to go to the ignition box. I know we don't need to go to the coil, because all that's gonna come from our engine computer. We will have to put some sensors in, but they're not gonna be where they were on the old engine, and I don't even have those sensors right now. So and actually all the sensor wires that I could identify by the color of the wire, they were already cut. So we're just gonna throw that over there. This is the dash wiring harness. I'm just gonna have to pull the dash out of this, pull the steering column back out, put the ignition switch back on, and then massage this harness to go everywhere that it needs to go. Basically, all it runs is the HVAC and the gauges and the headlights. So we got the headlight switch, the turn signal switch, which is here, and that's just these wires here. I believe there's a horn button in here. There is, it's broken, but and the horn button, which we'll have to get a new steering wheel, and then we've got the wipers, which somehow that has to get behind the dash to plug into the wiper switch, which is over here, no, down here. This is the fan switch. It doesn't seem to want to turn, so I have to see if I can fix that. And then here's all your cable controls for your heater. So all of the blend doors and everything are all controlled by cables. The only thing that's electric on the HVAC system is going to be the fan, and that's this switch here. That was the dash. And then all the lights and everything in the Speedo, which we're going to use the original Speedo. there's like 6 or 7 like idiot lights. I mean, actually no, there's turn signals, high beams, brakes, and 4-wheel drive, I think. And then backlighting for the actual Speedo itself. There's 3 of those. So I got to figure out those. We've got the 2 gauges, which I don't even know for sure what they are. One of them is going to be oil pressure. Yep, oil pressure and volts. So we'll reuse those. We just got to find which wire goes to what on these, and then get those plugged in. And then all these little indicators, they're all backlit. So we got to find all the wires for those. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the dash back. I'm going to disconnect that harness from the firewall, lay the dash on probably the stand here, put the gauges in it, and get all of the wiring ran for the dash, and then go back and put in the one for the ignition switch and the turn signals and the horn button. High beam is going to be on that. I think it might have a step-on high beam switch. I'm not sure. The wipers anyway. But in order to make this thing run, I don't want to just, part of making it run is getting it running right and having everything ran the way it needs to be ran. So the first step of that is getting the dash wired so that we have our ignition switch working the way it's supposed to and running the things it's supposed to run. And then I'm not going to put all these indicators in there because I don't need them. I'm just going to set the gauges in there. I might not even put the gauges in there. I might just figure out where I'm going to put the gauges because I still have to paint that panel, and I don't want to paint it until after I get done mocking it up. So I want to put it all together, make it run, and then take it all back apart and paint it. But the first step is I got to take it apart so I can put it back together. This is the struggles of a 5-year-old project that you haven't worked on in 3 years. So as far as the wiring goes and the parts goes, here's what we found so far. We have, I keep saying Grand Cherokee, but I don't think it was. I think it was actually an XJ. So we have the XJ engine harness. We have the YJ engine harness that came on our YJ tub, but that tub was actually a 4-cylinder Jeep. So really none of that is usable to us. We have the fuel tank for the CJ, which we're going to use. I think it's going to work out. And I'll be really sad if it doesn't work out because I put quarters on this to move the gas cap door to the other side because I thought there was a lot more different between the quarters on a CJ and a YJ than there actually was. After it was all said and done, it really was just the gas cap door, which was a lot of work for a little bit of gain. But it is what it is. You learn. I'm learning about Jeeps as I go, and the more I do, the less I want one. So this is the engine PCM harness for the XJ, and we're going to use some of this, not all of it, but we're going to try to use that fuse and relay panel because this Jeep didn't have a fuse and relay panel. It had a fuse panel, but it didn't have a relay panel because it didn't have relays on anything. So we're going to try to use that fuse and relay panel. I've got the wiring diagram for a 93 XJ, so I can figure out what all those wires go to. And then we saw that, and then over here we have parts, and we've got 2 emergency brake pedals, but both of them look exactly the same, so I don't know why. I think one must have come with the YJ tub. These are the door latches for the YJ tub. CJ glove box door, that's the boot that goes around the steering column. Those are the old CJ hubcaps, which I don't even think we have those wheels anymore, so I'm not sure why we still have the hubcaps. The shifter out of the XJ, the broken taillights out of the CJ, the fuel lines off the XJ, which we're going to use, the fuel pump off the XJ, which we can't use because I don't have any way to put that in that plastic tank. If it was a metal tank, I might be able to fab something, but it's not. So, and then we've got the transfer case adapter, which I don't even know that I need anymore because I don't think I need to clock the transfer case. I don't know. I have an adapter to be able to clock the transfer case wherever I need to put it. We've got the steering box, we've got the transfer case. I think that's all for parts for this. Well, we got the door, the cap for the thing over there, but then we found more wires on the engine here, and this basically looks like the negative battery cable, the wires that go to the alternator, which we're going to use, and hopefully it's like the other Dodges of this era, and it is regulated by the computer because there's no voltage regulator anywhere. So hopefully that's regulated by the computer. We've got the positive battery cable, I believe, and I'm guessing an oil temperature or oil level sender, which is kind of weird, but we'll hook that up. And then I think that's all the parts that, oh, we've got the heater stuff over there, the washer bottles over there. We've got random stuff that I found, all the heater control things here. Upper radiator hose that I think is gonna work. That's the drain for the cowl. This is some random piece of plastic cover that I don't know where it goes. That's the defrost vent for the CJ, which we're going to use. We have to convert the YJ windshield to accept the CJ defrost because it's different. And we're going to use a CJ defrost because we're not using a YJ dash, and that's where the defrost is. It's a disaster. The whole thing is a disaster. But we're having fun and we're learning as we go. Next step is, like I said, get the dash panel out and figure out that wiring mess. I don't know how I get myself into these situations. I know it looks like an absolute disaster, and it kind of is, but kind of got everything figured out where everything goes. I'm gonna have to find a socket because that one's broken, but that's where all those wires go. This goes over to the resistor on the HVAC system. This goes to the ignition switch, the brake light switch, and the combination switch in the steering column. And then we got the turn signal flasher. This is a horn relay, an extra light wire. I don't know where that goes. We got it missing one of the pieces for the label that lights up for the headlight switch. And then all of our rear tail light wiring, I found that, so that's a bonus. This goes to the dimmer switch. This goes to the brake light switch on the emergency brake. This goes out to through the firewall. Then on the other side of the firewall, we have a harness somewhere. Here it is. So this is the harness that goes on the other side of the firewall. I'm not 100% sure where those go yet. They go down, so something down there, but there's nothing down there to plug in. So we'll have to figure that out later. Once we get power on it, it'll be easier. All this is the original engine wiring harness. So basically this part is what I have to mend or weld, I don't know. We got to make this work with it's actually a ZJ, not a XJ, with the ZJ harness to make the engine run. So this should give me the signals I need to power up the ignition and the computer and the start signal and everything to make the ZJ harness make the engine do what the engine does. And then all the rest of this is the washer pump. This is the HVAC blower motor. No. One of these is, I know where basically all these go, and the rest of this goes to the front for the headlights. This one goes to the transmission, but we're gonna have to meld or weld or whatever, mend this with the mesh. That's the word I'm looking for. We're gonna have to mesh that with the ZJ harness because the transmission is out of the ZJ, not out of the CJ. So when we get there, we'll do that. But now for the real problem. This is the first part of this, and I've got my laptop and a bunch of printed papers and a pick, and we're unpinning connectors, and we got to figure out what all of this mess does. Right now, we have extra relay controlled circuit. This is the control, and this is the switched wire. That was going to the ABS motor, and I'm about to free up some more in here. Basically what I'm doing is I've got a diagram of what all these relays and maxi fuses and everything are, and the ones that I know I'm not going to use, I'm going to go ahead and pull out, set them off to the side, wind them up. I'm depinning them, I'm not cutting them, and I'll save these in case I need to I don't know, run. This would be good for like a fog light circuit or something. We just have to flip one wire and it'll control the other one. This one's going to be a little difficult because this relay is controlled by another relay. So you got the ABS system relay, and that one has to be on in order for the other one to work. But we could do like an interlock on like headlights, or not headlights, like you have to have the headlights on for the fog lights to work. There's all kinds of fun stuff you could do. It would be a good one for having to have like a wide open throttle switch to power a nitrous system, but I really don't think we're gonna need it on this build. But anyway, we're gonna use this factory fuse panel off of the ZJ to power everything. We got our battery connection here. It's got a ground connection in it. This is for the alternator, and it'll plug right into the alternator that's already on there. And I'm starting to get all this figured out. But I just figured it's been a little while. I've been working tirelessly on this. I figured I'd give you guys an update of where we're at and what we're doing. Right now, I'm gonna thin this out to where I have a manageable amount of wires that I know where they go. And then we're gonna get this installed in the Jeep, and then we're gonna start working on the engine side of things, which everything on the engine side of things should still be used because we're still using the engine. I'll update you when we get to the next step. I got that all thinned out. It's, this is extra wiring, extra circuits. Some of this I'm gonna have to hook up. Some of this turns on the ignition relay and powers the relays and the fuses, and some of this is battery power going inside. And so some of this is gonna have to get extended and go over there. Some of it's not gonna be used. I have everything labeled of what it is. And then this is what we're currently using. This here is going to attach to the harness for the PCM, which I have to figure out somewhere to put this on a YJ, which is what the tub is. This actually goes over there underneath the brake booster, but my ZJ wiring harness, it's not long enough to reach it over there, so I'm probably gonna have to make something work under here. We've got the heater box in the way, so I got that setting in there so I know where it's at. I've got all the wires hooked up on the engine, the alternator's hooked up, the starter's hooked up. We got this wire goes from here to the alternator, and then this wire, this gets power from the battery on this side. We've got the starter wire here is gonna have to be hooked into the battery cable, but it's too long right now, but I need to get that figured out. But since all of this wiring is on the engine and the firewall, I'm gonna go ahead and take the front wrap back off so it's a little easier to work on. And I'm just gonna keep plugging away at getting the wiring harness melded between the two. We've got to get the CJ1 back in there with the dash back in there and figure out what wires need to connect for the ignition switch to work and the turn signals and everything else and the lights and all that inside to work. We have a powered fuse box circuit in here that will run in there to power the CJ's original fuse box and then power all the CJ accessories with that. Next step is pull front wrap off and keep working on wiring, and I am so excited. The wiring is taking much longer than I thought, but it's gonna be easier to do it now the right way than just to hook up a couple of wires and make it start and then have to redo it, fix it later. So we've got, this is the front light harness off the CJ. It also includes the horn and the washer pump, so we have that. And then the other harness there is what goes to the engine. This is the oil pressure and the water temperature gauge. I don't have any of those yet. The ones that are in the YJ, or the ZJ engine don't interface with the gauges for the CJ. I've got them ordered. I don't have these wires anymore, so I'll have to just build new ends for it once I get them, but I don't want to do that till after I have the sending units. All this wiring is unused stuff. Most of it is like 4-cylinder stuff and things that weren't used on the CJ, like the air compressor, AC compressor is in here. And I didn't cut it off because you never know if they might be able to be used, but there's a couple of wires that are only applied to the 4-cylinder in there. And then we've got one other wire that I had to cut off. This is the power that goes to the backup light switch on the CJ, but the ZJ or the Cherokee powers that through the engine computer. So, but that doesn't make sense. I'm gonna have to look at that because it can't. The computer doesn't have enough power to run backup lights, I don't think. So I'm gonna have to look at that still. But the rest of the harness is done. This is battery power from our fuse panel over there. This is the switched power going back to the fuse panel, and that goes over here and energizes these two fuses here, which control or send power to the fuel pump and the ASD relay, which ASD, I don't know why they called it that, because all it does is it kills the field on the alternator and the power to the ignition coil. And then the fuel pump obviously runs the fuel pump. That wire's right in this mess somewhere. I still have to run it back. Oh, it's here, ready for me to run it back to run the fuel pump. But these are the three relays that are gonna run it. We've got the starter relay, the ASD relay, and the fuel pump relay. So basically ignition relay, fuel pump relay, and starter relay. All these fuses, this battery has like 6 volts in it, but it's enough to test for voltage. All these fuses have voltage except for the two that are powered by that red and white wire coming out of the off-keyed ignition, or keyed power. So all that's done. I believe there's enough electrical hooked up to it to start it. So I'm gonna break off of this because I really need to take the harnesses back off there, sort them out. I need to take all this. I'm gonna take all this out of the relay or the power distribution center here, and just probably leave some short wires, and I'll leave them in bundles of 5, like for, you know, spare relays, so that if you wanted to use them, you don't have to break this apart to get in there to use those. And I'll just tie those wires up neatly under here. I found a place to mount the engine computer. I got to finish making a bracket for it. It fits down there. I had to bend this out of the way so that the fender will clear, but if the wiring is out of the way, which I'm going to redo this when I put it back together, I'm going to run this wire down and go underneath here and down instead of over the back, so then it'll have plenty of room. But again, that's when I take it back off. I need to hook up the battery cable for the starter, but the wiring for now should be good to go.
The dash wiring's done?
The dash wiring's all in there. I just put it in off the stand. It's just in there with a couple of bolts, but that's where it all goes. I do have to put the steering column back in so we can use the ignition switch, but next, because I'm tired of wiring, I need to work on the fuel system so I can run that fuel pump wire back. And what I'm gonna do is take this tank, and it should be pretty clean inside. It's plastic so it won't rust. I'm just gonna make sure everything's good in there. I'm gonna check the sending unit out, make sure everything's good, pull that out, make sure that the sock is clean and everything is good there. And then I'm gonna mount the tank in the Jeep, and I believe it's gonna bolt right up to this frame. Hopefully I don't have to make any brackets, but I'll bolt that up to the frame, and then I'm gonna run the return line and the main fuel line off this. So this side will be the back. Unfortunately, it goes to the wrong side, but that's okay. And I'll just run it down. The main line, I'm gonna mount my fuel pump. I believe, I haven't decided completely yet. I gotta look under there once I get it in there and see. But my plan is to mount the fuel pump on the back of this down low, so that once this is full of water, once that's full of fuel, it'll siphon feed to feed the fuel pump, because it is an electric fuel pump and they don't like to suck. So hopefully, if I put it down low, it'll be low enough that once it's full of fuel, it'll siphon feed to the fuel pump. The return line will come back. We're gonna use the stock fuel lines off of the Cherokee. This one will have to be cut off because it's too long, but this will interface with these fuel lines that go to the engine here, right over here on the driver's side frame rail. I'll run this one back, and then somewhere around here I have this will be the return line. Somewhere around here I have the feed line, and it's shorter. And then I'll have a place to put a filter. I'm just gonna put a factory filter for the Cherokee, or the Grand Cherokee, in line after the pump. So it'll suck out of the tank, put fuel through the filter, and then come up here to the fuel injection system. It's got the factory regulator already on it, got a vacuum line up, and it'll return back to the tank after it sets whatever fuel pressure it wants. That's my plan. Jeep. Just empty every pocket. The sending unit's no good. The little part that sweeps on the, I guess it's part of the variable resistor in there, the part that sweeps, it's broke off. So we're gonna have to order one of those. This is full of junk down inside this tank piece, and I'm not gonna leave it like that. I need to clean it out, which means I have to take the tank out, which means I have to take the strap off, but the strap's definitely gonna break. So we're gonna have to get another one of those. But none of that matters because we can put the other sending unit back in. The sock is clear, the line is clear, everything looks good. I gotta get this out, I'm gonna clean the tank out, and then we'll put this in there. We can still run it, just when we get ready for final assembly, we'll have to have all those parts available to put them in and hook everything up so it works. There's something in here, but I'm not sure what it is. I can hear it rolling around. Oh, it's an old float for the fuel level sending unit. We'll see if we can get it out of there. I wanted to show you this over here. This is why I took the fuel tank out. I'm gonna just clean this up and then I'll wire wheel it off, get it somewhat cleaned up, and then I'm just gonna PR15 it. That way it stops all that rust.
Are you putting on the whole thing or just the spots that are super rusty?
No, I'm gonna do the whole thing. All right, we got the extra fuel level sending unit float out of there. We're not gonna need that anymore. I still gotta wash up the outside of the fuel tank, but I got this all cleaned up. I just took the outside, wire wheeled it up, and rattle canned it. This is gonna be satin black, kind of a semi-gloss. The inside I just cleaned up, got all the loose rust out, and put PR15 on it so that it'll prevent any more rust from happening inside there. Now I'll get the tank washed up, put the old sending unit back in it for now, and run my fuel lines. I'm just gonna loop the fuel line on there and then cut off what I need for the return line, and hopefully I have enough for the pressure line once I get the return line ran. I'm gonna get that done, and then I'll check back in once the tank's under the Jeep. We've got our wiring harnesses installed. I still need to go back after I make sure everything is good and it runs. I'll go back and clean all the wiring up and figure out a way to tie it all up and put split loom on it and everything else. But for right now, it's good. The fuel lines are run. We ran the factory lines all the way down through the vibration piece there, and then it runs factory stainless steel lines. On the return line goes all the way back to the tank with the piece of rubber fuel injection hose between the tank and the stainless steel line. And then let me take the camera, Amber. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this under here because of the lights. Okay, so if you look up there, you can see where our stainless steel return line goes down, and we have a piece of rubber hose coming out and going to our fuel pump, which is mounted there. This is just one of those 255 liter fuel pumps that's not a Walbro. It's a I don't know, some other brand on Amazon. It's not an expensive one. If it works, great. If not, as long as the system works, then if we have to replace it, we can go with something more expensive. But I just wanted the cheapest thing I could get for right now because I'm cheap. Then we go over to a factory Cherokee fuel filter, and I reused the little push-on ends, so that's not hard to change. I had to make a bracket to mount it up there. And then that goes down, and right there it splices into the factory fuel line. Our fuel pump wire comes from the relay panel, follows down the lines there. I've got part of it split loomed. I might go back and do it different, but for right now I just did the end of it, and it goes over to our fuel pump, which is grounded to our frame. I'm gonna have to add a couple of grounds once we get back to the engine side, because right now only the engine is grounded. We need to get the frame and the body grounded in order to make everything work. I'm still gonna have to add a couple of grounds because right now all we have is the engine grounded, and that bolt's not even tight yet because I'm gonna run my ground from there to the frame, and then I'll run one from the frame to the body somewhere, just so everything is nice and grounded so we don't run into problems with that. I took the AC compressor off just because we're not going to use it and it's kind of bulky and in the way. The next thing we have to do is install our steering column so we can hook up our ignition switch wires down there, and then we should be able to put a battery in this thing and... Oh, we got to put fuel in it. put a battery in it and try to start it, but first we have to put fuel in. So let me show you what my plan there is. The tank's in there, it's bolted in the back and C-clamped in the front because the holes don't exactly line up. It hits the cross member, I just need to drill new holes, but I don't want to do that just yet. But as you can see, we don't have any fuel filler hoses, and the ones that were on this were broke, so I don't have any. So what I'm gonna do is, that's plan A. If that doesn't work, that's plan B. This, I can bring it out through the fender well. There's 2 funnels here and should be able to pour it in by the back tire. We're just gonna put 5 gallons in it because we still have to take that tank back down to change the sending unit. And I don't wanna make it any heavier than it absolutely has to be. Okay, so we got our battery in. Everything appears to be not smoking. Got our power probe. Just gonna check a few things here. We have battery voltage at the alternator, so that's good. We have battery voltage at the starter, so that's good. I guess we should check. We have ground on the engine block. Now we just need to get inside. I don't want to check any of the coils or anything, any of that yet. I'm not ready for that. We need to go inside and check out the key switch and see if all that has what it needs. And I know you're not gonna be able to see this, so you just be able to listen for the power probe, and I'll tell you what we find. So on the power wire, the battery wire coming in, we have battery voltage, and none of our other wires have any kind of signal. So if we go to the run position, we should have battery voltage on that red wire that goes to our fuse, our switched accessories over there. We have battery voltage on our accessory wire, which runs all the stuff that's in the accessory position. And we got power on our switched ignition or keyed hot. The last one we should have power on when we crank this is the start. Well, it appears we don't have the start position. I don't know if our ignition switch is bad. I guess we're gonna get to fix something else before we can see if we get this thing running. The ignition switch, I don't think I have any. I know I don't have any zip ties on it. And there's definitely nothing on top of that rod. I'm gonna have to pull, I should have checked this before I put it in, I guess. I'm gonna have to pull the steering column back down, and I'll put it on the stand and see if I can figure out why we don't have any start position, and now the key is stuck in the ignition. I can't get it back to the off position. So let me get that out and we'll see what we can find. Found the problem with the steering column. It was me. When I put it in, I had the switch in one position and the tumbler in another position, and that led me to not be in the right position on the key. So now everything's right. I also found the release lever on the back here, so now I know how to get the key out. So still have to jiggle it a little bit, but it comes out now. So now we're gonna try this again and see what happens when we turn the key on. Everything's hooked up, so.
Wait, are we test firing it right now?
No, we're not test firing it. There's no fuel in it.
No.
We just want to see, we're gonna check all of our power and everything, so. Oh, no. So the fuel pump runs.
But there's no fuel.
That's good, but we better put fuel in it. I didn't really expect it to work, so I guess we'll put fuel in it, see what happens.
I thought that was plan B.
Oh, this is plan B. We'll try plan A. I don't know which side is which, so we're just gonna try one way, then try the other. This gas can is one of those ones for.
I think you might have to speak up over the wind.
I think this gas can is one of those ones for people who are idiots, so you can't get a hose in it.
Oh.
Oh no. All right, I give up. I'm not using this. Amber just thinks she's gonna get to film plan B, that she's part of plan B. She's either going to be the funnel holder or the pourer. She gets to decide which. Is it leaking anymore?
I don't think so. Hold on. It's coming out of the funnel. This funnel, the connection.
That's what I said, you got to hold that other one up enough so that it goes into that funnel.
No, this right here, the screw part.
Oh. Oh, we just broke it.
Oh. Well, it was working so well.
That's unfortunate. Okay, we're on to plan C. I guess we'll turn the key back on and see if the fuel pump sounds like it picks fuel up.
Can't hear anything over the wind.
Okay, well the starter circuit definitely doesn't work. I'm gonna go ahead and use my my power probe and see if I can get that fuel pump to. The ignition's not running it very long, so I think this one was the fuel pump. Okay, it doesn't sound like it's picking fuel up, so I'm gonna not worry about that right now because we also don't have the start signal working. That should be this relay here. And we have nothing there, power there. So this is power from the key switch, which is this blue wire here, which I'm not expecting to have right now. And the other one is a ground from the computer that actually allows it to start. I'm gonna go hit the key switch and see if we pick up power on that. Anything?
What's it supposed to do?
Beep?
No.
All right, now I'm gonna test it at the actual key switch and make sure, or at the ignition switch, and make sure we're getting voltage out on the wire that's supposed to power that. Okay, we're getting power there. Maybe I got the wrong relay. Amber, will you do me a favor and go hold the key in the start position?
Is now a good time to ask how much you love Jeeps?
I don't know if love is the word I would use to define my relationship with Jeeps. All right, so what our problem ended up being is there was a tiny bit of misalignment with the switch still, and now it seems to be better. Now there's only 4 positions instead of 5 on the key switch, so Amber's not confused anymore. The problem with the fuel pump appears to be that, yet again, I made a mistake and didn't mark which end of the hose went to which side of the sending unit. So either I missed a big hole in the pickup, which, since it wasn't rusty, is unlikely, or I hooked the fuel pump up to the return line and all it's doing is evacuating the vent, or the air out of the top of the tank, and it's never going to make pressure with that. So now I'm going to drop the tank and switch the lines on the fuel pump, or on the sending unit, because they're not the same length, so I can't just swap them underneath the Jeep where it's nice and easy to get to. So that's the next step now, is to drop the fuel tank, now that we've got 5 gallons of gas in it and it's heavy and it's gonna wanna spill everywhere, down and swap the lines on the top. I'm excited. Wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. I didn't put the fuel tank all the way back in. Right now it's just hanging on, or held up by the transmission jack, just in case. We're gonna go ahead and see if the fuel pump sounds better now. Okay, I'm just gonna do it with the power probe. I guess we'll see. Ooh, we don't want to have sparks and see if it'll. Oh, we have a little leak. Let's go see where that's at. It's on the connection for the pressure going into our main fuel line key.
Is it loose?
It's just an O-ring, and it's probably just got some dirt in it, or the O-ring's bad. I'm not real sure at this point. I'm just trying to rotate it on there and kind of, it's got any trash in it, free that trash in. Everything's plugged in. Fuel pump's working. I'm just gonna hit the start with the relay in there and everything hooked up and see what happens. Nothing.
That ignition does not want to play nice.
It does?
What's the problem?
Well, I would say we're not getting a start signal to the starter relay. We're gonna try this again. Hit the, turn the ignition on.
So that's off.
Okay. Go to start. So that signal's getting through. Just put it in the on position.
Hold on, I don't know. Okay, now it's an on.
We're just gonna do this and see what happens.
What?
We're gonna have to figure out the starter side of things. Get ready to turn the key off. There's no water or anything in it, so.
Why is it so loud? Does it not have an exhaust?
It doesn't have any exhaust.
Are you putting one on?
Eventually, yeah. So it seems like as soon as I let off the key, or the start, it quits running. Let's see what happens if I hold it.
What's that spraying out?
Out of where?
Right, hold on. Right here. Something keeps spurting.
That's fuel.
Every time it fires.
That's the fuel pressure regulator. It looks like the O-ring's bad on it.
Is this what happens when you let a vehicle sit outside uncovered for years?
Yes. So I decided maybe the problem was that the fuel pressure regulator was bleeding pressure off, and that's what was causing it to die. So I figured I'd go ahead and give it a shot, and it's not what it was. But on the plus side, you can tell that it has oil pressure because of that. There's a hole in the side of the oil filter. Apparently it got bumped at some point. And it's built oil pressure. It runs. It doesn't run for very long, but it runs. There's still obviously something going on with the wiring, but I'll be honest, I'm seeing cross-eyed from staring at wiring diagrams. So I'm gonna take a break from that. I answered the question. Did we ruin the engine by letting it sit for 3 years out here? I mean, it had a hood on it, but yeah, we let it sit for 3 years. And I just wanted to make sure that we weren't wasting our time trying to build this Jeep with an engine that was not gonna work. Well, it obviously works. It does need some help, but we'll get there. For now, I'm tired of kicking the tires when I wanna steer this thing. So our next video is gonna be figuring out hooking up the steering. Since we already have the steering column in, I'm gonna go ahead and get a box mount built so we can mount the steering box, figure out the steering shaft, and then figure out what we're gonna do, because right now, with the current positioning of things, there's no way to hook a steering shaft or a drag link up from the steering box to this spindle over here where it's supposed to hook up. I'm probably gonna have to build some type of high steer setup for it. I don't know what the plan there is yet. I've done a little bit of research, but I'm just gonna go get some metal, and I'm gonna see what I can fab up so that we can get that arm above that leaf spring on the passenger side there. But if you want to see that, subscribe so you get notification when we put our video out next week, probably, hopefully, and this thing will be steering, and then we'll get back to getting it running properly so that we can take it all back apart. See you soon.